So when we're dealing with a historical account of what happened, when they're riddled with contradictions, I think that that's a problem. If you don't think that's a problem, then that's fine. But I think that the people listening and wanting to find out if the Bible is true might see that as reason to undermine the trust of the text.
First of all, almost everything that we know about those events in terms of modern historical reliability, for example, where is the site of Jesus's crucifixion? Yeah. Unknown.
Allegedly
disputed. There are a couple of potential sites, but it's not known. What day of the year was Jesus born? Unknown. We think Jesus lived for 33 years, but let's say that one of the Gospels said it was 33 and the other one said it was 34. Do you think that would actually refute Christianity?
No.
No, it would not.
No.
It would actually be quite understandable that you'd have two guys. And they would get that, and they'd be off on that, and this contradiction would be trivial because the issue is not whether Jesus lived for 33 or 34 years old.
Right, that's a different kind. Because if you could tell me that the reason why they had specifically chosen those ages was to serve a theological point, knowing that they're willing to sort of adapt history in order to make a theological point, I wouldn't say that that point alone undermines Christianity. What I would say is that it undermines our trustworthiness in the Bible. I'm not saying that any one of these contradictions can tell us Christianity is false.
No, but I'm saying
firstly, the question is not if Christianity is true, it's whether the Bible is true. It may be the case that a man called Jesus came down to earth, rose from the dead. It's just that the gospel accounts get the details wrong, which mean that the Bible is not correct, but the story that the Bible tells is true. It means that Christianity is true, but the Bible is false. That's perfectly consistent.
I'm simply saying that what you're doing is you are supplying a motive that is completely made up, and that I could engage in exactly. Let's just take, for example, the 33 versus the 34 years. Now, here's what I'm saying. If there was such a contradiction and I were being you, I would say, oh, the reason that Matthew said it was 33 is because 3 is the number of the Trinity. And so 33 has a certain theological resonance because 3 and 3 is 33. Hold on.
I don't know how Alex is doing this. This is so frustrating because he is completely missing or avoiding the point. Dinesh is completely missing or avoiding the point that Alex is trying to make here. And that it's very simple, that there could hypothetically be motivations for changing certain details, for changing the historical account of events within the Bible. And I think that's something that, because they are human writers and because there were so many of them over such a long span of time with different motivations, different beliefs perhaps, I think that's inarguable, really. Like to say that there's a possibility, just to clarify. And that's all that Alex is doing. And once you establish that, then you establish that there could be a reason to question the historicity of the Bible. And the thing that's so frustrating to me as well is that Dinesh can concede this. And Alex is showing him the out, that even if we determine this, that doesn't mean that Christianity is false. And it doesn't even necessarily mean that the Bible is false. But it does raise the question of maybe there are some things in it that are not historically accurate. So it's all about raising that question. And Dinesh is very scared to take that step, apparently.
And then I would come around and say, well, the reason the other guy said 34 is actually 3 plus 4 is 7. God made the world in 7 days. 7 is known to be a number fraught with theological significance. And I'm saying this is basically Alex BS.
Dinesh, the gospel writers tell us that's
Alex
why it
BS. Alex BS. Again, like this is like getting borderline on rude. And Alex is being very patient.
Say that the reason the family went to Egypt was to fulfill the prophecy of Hosea.
Okay, and so
in other words, if the gospel writer, and now imagine that the gospel writers had written what you just said. Imagine in the actual text, one of them said he was 33 when he died because of the number 3 and its significance.
Correct.
And another said that he was 34 because of the number 4 and its significance. That would be a contradiction, and in that instance, not just a historical contradiction, but a spiritual and theological one too.
Actually, no, it actually wouldn't.
Oh, come on.
It wouldn't. I'll tell you why.
You don't think that's a contradiction?
No, it's not a contradiction at all, because the gospel writers are constantly
Contradicting each other.
No, drawing, not contradicting each other. If they were constantly contradicting each other, you wouldn't have spent half an hour on a single event that, frankly, I haven't even heard of. In fact, no one's ever heard of. I've never ever heard anyone discuss this in any context. So which event? This prophecy about Hosea. I'll go back and look at all this. But what I'm trying to get at is, if you had a plethora of contradictions, you wouldn't be.
Can you all just look at Alex's face right now? So I'm not a former Christian. I'm not that familiar with the Bible, but my sense from Alex O'Connor's reaction is that this story that Dinesh is claiming that no one knows about, that he didn't know about, is actually a really significant one, biblically speaking. Space Elia, this is how you know Alex is British. a literal facepalm as he's trying to comprehend the dismissiveness of Dinesh here. I don't understand why he's being so evasive about this stuff right now, because as we discussed before, like, you can concede these points and you don't actually lose much ground. It's almost like he's afraid of what the next step will be that Alex will take. But we're not getting to that point because he's sticking with the yes and no. Well, no, I wouldn't. Even when he gave him the very precise example of 33 years old for Jesus, because 3 has a very spiritual importance as a number, and 34 being the age and 4 having the spiritual significance, he wouldn't even concede that.
Spending the entire debate on one that I'm sure no one in the audience has heard of either.
Hold on.
But okay, you've heard of it. Probably because you've been listening to his YouTube channel, right?
You don't think that this is a highly discussed point of contention in the Gospels, the flight to Egypt and its contradiction with
the flight to Egypt. Look, the flight to Egypt is an important event in the Gospel. I'm not saying.
Dinesh, also, you said, why could you only bring up this one example? Take your pick. The date of Jesus' crucifixion, whether they're to take a staff or not to take a staff, the dating of Jesus flipping the tables at the temple, Mary Magdalene and what she says at the tomb, when the temple curtain rips. In the Gospel of Luke, it says that this happens before Jesus' death, and in the Gospels of Matthew and Mark, it says that it happens afterwards. Like, we can go through any of these contradictions that you like, but the problem is that what you're going to tell me is that it's trivial, and then when I try to explain that it's not trivial, you say, oh, well, I haven't even heard of it, and no one else really cares about this, when other people do, by the way. This is a highly discussed point of contention in the Gospel. All I'm asking you to do is say that this is, when I mentioned the staff in my opening statement, and I said that whether or not they take a staff is a totally trivial contradiction. I'm not bothered by that. If I were a Christian, I would say, yeah, of course, because the texts are not going to perfectly accord. But for some reason, Augustine could not accept this, and so comes up with this ludicrous idea of a literal staff and a metaphorical staff that Jesus is talking about. If you were willing to just say, yes, this is a contradiction, but that doesn't upset the method of Christianity, I think it would be a much more defensible and respectable approach. But instead, it seems that you're unwilling to admit that there's even a single contradiction in these texts.
I am saying that the texts are written from 4 different points of view.
Do they contradict each other?
And it is quite possible that on details, Matthew tells you things that are not in Mark or different than Mark. Different than Mark. Contradict Mark.
Contradict Mark.
Yes, contradict Mark. And so the point is, here's my point. You're acting... look at it this way. You would be scoring a point if you could say, God wrote 4 books and they contradict each other. Just like if you're able to say, Dinesh said this in the beginning of the debate and that at the end of the debate, Dinesh is contradicting himself. On the other hand, if we have 2 guys who are here today to go and write an account of this debate, right? And then we look at their accounts, which are authentic, first person. I was their accounts with a lot of detail.
Yep.
And one guy says, for example, the lights were dark. The other guy says the lights were dim. Or one guy says, for example, that Dinesh was sitting at a 45-degree angle. Another guy says it was a 50-degree angle.
Yeah.
But these are
now
not.
Imagine,
and then someone goes, Dinesh was sitting at a 43.5-degree angle because he thought this was a way of maximizing his rhetorical effectiveness with the audience. People would be like,
now imagine somebody said, Alex is wearing a blue jacket, and the reason he was wearing a blue jacket, someone said it's a blue jacket, someone else said it's a red jacket. Who cares? You're quite right. But if somebody said specifically, I know that the reason he was wearing a blue jacket was because there's an upcoming election in the UK that's just been announced, and he was trying to represent the Conservative Party. And somebody else said, I know that the reason he was wearing red, and in fact, he told us himself that the reason he was wearing red is because he wanted to support Labour in the upcoming general election in his home country.
Okay, perfect
You would
example.
say, that is a contradiction and means that one of you wasn't paying close enough attention, not just to the color of my jacket, but the very message that I was trying to get across.
that could well be true. But what I'm getting at is we know just from normal experience that if the two of us are sitting in a cafe and we see an accident, these kinds of differences are normal. So let's just say, for example, here's God showing us a revelation, and the revelation can be whatever it is, and you and I write an account of it, and somebody finds that my account of it not only is different.
So I mean, again, and like I'm going to address some of the things in the live chat here that Daniel says different people give different perspectives doesn't mean they contradict. Well, with the example of the car accident, and the eyewitness accounts differ, it still matters that one of them or maybe both of them were wrong. It doesn't matter if they were wrong for mundane reasons or whatever, or if we want to talk about things in the Bible, the passage of time, or hearing the story wrong, or a mistranslation, or whatever it is. All of these perfectly reasonable reasons that don't, mind you, that don't question the truth or not of Christianity are totally acceptable. They're totally acceptable reasons to be wrong, and Dinesh is weirdly not conceding this. And someone else in the comments, JJ Soul, makes this point, which I think is a good one to make. There are answers to these supposed contradictions, so maybe there are Christian apologist answers to these contradictions. Dinesh needs to defend his position better or concede he doesn't know the answer, and this is something, as we've seen, he doesn't want to do. And we once again go to this core thing that Alex keeps bringing up, and he's trying all these different ways with the red shirt and blue shirt example to just show that when you look at some of these things, sure, there's allegorical truths, there's other things that are historically accurate and that aren't contradicting, but when you're looking at other things, there is a problem there. And this debate has completely stalled for a good 30 minutes now because Dinesh won't concede this point. And instead, he's working on dismissing Alex in all the ways he can. So he's focusing on things that aren't important, that no one cares about. He's being nitpicky. He's being pedantic. And I don't think he is, because you could argue something like the staff is unimportant, like he was saying. But what matters is it raises the question of why are there these contradictions? And that leads us to the perhaps dangerous question that Dinesh doesn't want to answer, is that this could all be just fictional, or a lot of it could be fictional, and we just have no real good way of knowing what is what. And so we just have to rely on blind faith. And this is something that Dinesh has kind of hinted at, but hasn't expressed very clearly so far.